Call to order the regular city council meeting for September 26th. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Roll call, Cindy.
Honorable Mayor Grover.
I'm here.
Councilmember Overhauser.
Present.
Councilmember Schmidt.
Present.
Councilmember Bartels.
Present.
Councilmember Weissman.
Here.
Councilmember Guard.
Present.
Councilmember Hilton.
Here.
Councilmember Postuma.
Present.
We are all here. Thank you. I do have a request to excuse Councilmember Guard for the October 10th meeting. Motion is second to excuse Ryan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
There you go, Ryan. Have fun.
Yes.
Okay, this is an opportunity for the citizens to comment. I did get a request to speak from Corinna Donnerberg, and also the council received an email regarding police department funding in 2024 discretionary requests, police department investigation, and police overtime spending from Ms. Donnerberg. Come on in. And as always, please state your name and your address for the record and limit your comments to 2 minutes.
My name is Corinna Donnerberg of 2220 Annie Place, and I'm here to talk about leadership failures, misconduct, and fiscal irresponsibility within the Cheney Police Department. I learned this week that a total of $336,000 has been spent as of August 31st of this year on salary and benefits for CPD officers on administration, including almost $250,000 for Chad Eastep, who's on administrative leave for almost 2 years. For folks who need a refresher, Eastep lost his law enforcement credentials in the state of Washington and resigned from CPD after substantiated findings of sexual harassment of a female subordinate officer that lasted for years, as well as other misconduct. This misconduct was perpetrated while Chief Bechtel was captain, but he apparently had no knowledge of it. John Hensley was police chief at the time. It is unclear to what extent Hensley was aware of Eastep's misconduct, given reports that he spent his days as chief of police watching YouTube videos about tractors. As of earlier this month, Captain Conley was awaiting discipline regarding sustained findings of failure of supervisor responsibilities and failure to abide by standards of ethical conduct, while Detective Haney was awaiting discipline regarding sustained findings of neglect of duty, unsatisfactory work performance, and failure to abide by standards of ethical conduct. The pursuit of a criminal investigation into both officers was a path considered but ultimately not taken after consultation with Cheney Municipal Prosecuting Attorney Mike Allen, potentially due to the difficulty of proving willful neglect. In a community where the median household income is about $42,000 a year, the nearly $337,000 spent to pay officers to stay home and not do police work represents what 8 families live on in a given year. It is no secret that many folks in our community are struggling to meet basic needs like food, clothing, shelter, and medical care, and yet this is how Cheney is spending tax dollars. As of this summer, 160 utility customers had lost services due to non-payment in the previous 2 months, and 11 additional customers were at risk of shut-off for non-payment. The total amount for all delinquent accounts was $390,000, perhaps an amount that could have been reduced to just over $50,000 if the money used on police administrative leave was available for other uses, such as ensuring everyone in Cheney has access to basic human necessities such as water and heat.
Just a couple seconds left.
Okay, Michael, finish my statement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Corinna. Anybody else wish to speak? Oh, come on up. State your name and your address for the record, please.
Okay, so my name is Micah Boxtrick Martinez of 503 Elm Street in Cheney. We also need to talk about police overtime spending. Why are patrol officers working 50, 60, or 70 plus hours of overtime in 1 month? Have you requested staffing information, schedules, and case call data from Chief Bechtel that might show how such overtime is necessary for the safety and well-being of the people in our community, or if it's not? We keep hearing about police staffing shortages, but it's clear that no one has even tried to create a patrol schedule that avoids regular overtime. There is no incentive for the department to cut costs when this body of elected representatives asks no questions, requires no documentation, and makes no demand for responsible spending, approving every discretionary budget request that comes before you and pay no heed to the fact that patrol spending is already at 116% of the budget only 8 months into this fiscal year. I do not understand why Mayor Grover never initiated a search for a new police chief outside of the department, given the breadth and depth of concerns, or why $30,000, basically an average month of officer overtime spending, was considered too much to pay for an outside investigation to officers Connie and Hanny. While it's clear that there are some very dedicated and hardworking patrol officers of strong character that bring a lot to our community, the systematic problems within the department create significant barriers to their ability to serve the people of Cheney with honesty, integrity, and compassion. What is this council doing actively to ensure that Cheney has a police department that operates ethically, effectively, and efficiently to serve the people and community of Cheney? Mayor Grover, I also pose the question to you. What are you doing to ensure that Cheney has a police department that functions ethically, effectively, and efficiently to serve the people of Cheney? I would also like to ask that Mayor Grover, you are reviewing the policy and notes for the Civil Service Commission, and there is no timeline for the standing up of the commission. Are you able to describe what matters or the work that has been done regarding the Civil Service Commission since inquiries were made more than 6 months ago? Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? How about those that are joining us virtually?
I would, Mayor.
Go ahead, Derek. Please state your full name and your address for the record, please.
Derek Baziotis, 24 West First Street, Cheney, Washington, 99004. My comment is purely based on in the past, we've been able to see the speakers. Has that changed? Is their camera not working or?
No,
We don't
we'll look into that.
Okay, because all I can see is the council. Like there is no that in the agenda, but you can't see who's actually speaking.
Okay.
That was my only comment.
Okay. Thanks, Derek. We'll look into that.
Thanks.
And I'm not sure if we do have a camera here. I just don't know why it's not working.
Yeah, it's just,
It's not connected.
stop, share the agenda, and put it on the speaker.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Because we can walk through the agenda, and I think that's fine. Well, we can see the dais, but not, or the council, but not the speaker. Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, perfect.
It's a very nice shirt you have, Ryan. I like it.
Okay, how about in the crowd? Does anybody else wish to speak? This is your opportunity. Once again, virtually, anybody wish to speak? Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on to item E. That's the minutes from our September 12th meeting. You've had an opportunity to review those minutes, accept the motion to approve them if there's no corrections.
There was one small correction, Your Honor.
Okay,
And Carrie's already taken care of it,
okay,
so I would move approval with the correction. It was just a matter of your name was used instead of
oh, okay.
Mayor Pro
Gotcha,
Tem.
gotcha. I'll second.
That's all.
Okay, a motion and a second to approve the minutes as corrected. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's approved. Vouchers, Cindy.
Total vouchers of $721,459.01.
Your Honor, the Finance Committee reviewed these items. I would move approval.
Second.
Think I have a motion and a second to approve the vouchers as presented. Any questions? Go ahead, Mark.
Just have a quick question. Cindy, could you tell me what repairs to 615 is? Number 615,
Number 615.
is that a vehicle or something?
Two,
Car.
I think is 600 a wastewater treatment plant vehicle. So, I
Okay.
mean, I can get to you what exactly number 615 is. I don't know off the top of my head,
Okay.
but it's out in the wastewater treatment plant.
I was just wondering if it was a vehicle or something.
No, it's a
Okay.
piece of heavy equipment.
Okay, great. And then the second one, I know we talked about this at one point, but I was just wondering for you to clarify it. Executech, we did 31,000 and what's that supposed to be at some point? Because we had a lot.
Yeah,
ahead
so
of
what
time.
happened
was it
is
gonna be?
we initially paid our first bill with Executech, and then I went for a month and a half. And on one of my meetings, I said, I haven't seen an invoice from you for a long time. And so they're getting that billing piece up. But yeah, it's about 15,000 a month
Okay,
that
yeah,
will pay for that.
that's what,
And that includes the services that we're getting from them and our network services, managing all of our network stuff and our user things here. It includes our backups that are going to be on there as well.
great.
There'll be a separate billing that comes over for Office 365 since we've now converted to that and we pay that on a monthly basis. So you'll see those kind of bills pop through. There's a little bit of stuff when we first went with that contract. I don't know if you recall the contract. It had a certain number of hours that we got with them for our onboarding. And we had some stuff going on that needed some additional help. So I have had to pay a little bit more than that for some additional hours to get some things corrected.
Yeah.
So that we're going down the right path.
Great,
So
awesome.
that's where we're at.
Thanks, Cindy.
Thanks, Mark. Any other comments or questions? I do have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Great. Thank you, Cindy. Your vouchers are approved. We didn't have any claims for damages, but you can see there's a couple small contracts that I signed. Test Monitoring Service and the STEM program Minds in Motion. Don't have any information items or appointments, but we have a handful of action items and we'll move right into resolution F-187. This is the reimbursement resolution for the pool bond. Todd. Oh, Cindy, sorry.
Thank you. So the citizens approved our pool bond. And what that means is that things are going on now to get that ready to go so that those assessments will happen next year and that with those bonds will be sold next year. Well, we have actually expenses coming into play. And so there's several things on the agenda having to do with the pool today. This is the first one. Our bond attorney has given us the resolution. So what this is a reimbursement. So any money we spend in advance of receiving the bond proceeds for the demo of the stuff we're doing, for the site prep, any of the things that we're doing and spending money on that will allow us to get our money, kind of repay ourselves out of the bond money. So we're gonna have to pay that in advance. And then the bond money, when we get it, we will receive our money back for that. We'll go back into our coffers. That's all this is allowing us to do that for any qualifying expenses for the pool. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I would ask for passage of resolution F-187.
Thanks, Cindy. Any questions for Cindy on this?
If there are no questions, I would move for passage of resolution F 817.
Second.
1817, I'm sorry.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second to approve resolution F-187 as presented. Any final comments or questions? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you, Cindy. Resolution F-187 passes. Resolution F-188, this is the Union Pacific Railroad Pipeline Crossing Supplemental Agreement. Todd.
Supplemental agreement. Yeah, when we're doing the design, we got the purple pipe under the UP, but we forgot to include a fiber line, which is a separate conduit. It'll go in the same casing, but it's a 4-inch separate line that goes in there. So this is an amendment to that crossing underneath there for that. And so they just wanted us to come back with a supplemental agreement. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Todd. Any questions for Todd on this? Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. The only one I had was just thinking ahead a little bit. Should we throw another piece of conduit under there for anything in the future, or would that 4-inch? It'd probably be capable of handling anything else in the future.
Yeah,
but-
those borings, I believe the casing itself is going to be upwards of 30 to 36 inches. And the pipe going through there, I believe is 16 or 18 inches. So we have capacity in there. So at any time we could actually possibly put any other conduit. But we felt the 4-inch for a fiber optic is plenty of capacity to that end.
Yeah, and would allow us to put something else through that in the future. Okay, great. Thanks.
Good question.
Well, there's no further questions. I make a motion to pass resolution F-188.
Second. Thank you. I have a motion and a second to pass resolution F-188, the Union Pacific Railroad Pipeline Crossing Supplemental Agreement. Any final comments or questions?
Your Honor, this is Vince. Just one quick final comment. As a member of the consultant team for this resolution, next resolution, I'm just going to abstain. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We did have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
And one abstention. Thank you, Todd. Resolution F-188 passes. Resolution F-189 is the BNSF Water Mains License Supplemental Agreement. Go ahead.
Yeah, when we're doing we did the original agreement a few years ago, and this supplemental agreement is that when we went under the BNSF railroad track, that was the original agreement. When we started to go between Pine Street and started going east and west, it was still within the railroad right of way. So we had to do a supplemental agreement for that 352 section of Maine. We took another look to try to see if we could get it somewhere outside that railroad right of way, but there was just too many utilities in the alley. So the supplemental agreement will allow us to basically go the east and west from Fern Street to Pine Street.
Perfect. Thanks, Todd. Any questions for Todd? Go ahead, Mark.
Just a quick one. If it's really an agreement, no money's really changing hands, is there a reason why it's only 25 years as opposed to more?
That's their term. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. So it is a 25-year agreement. Expenditure required is 25,000, which is about $1,000 per year for use of that.
okay. And why don't we just, I mean, it's gonna be there for a long time. Is there a reason we shouldn't just make it for longer?
We can't. That's their
We can't.
agreement. Yeah,
Okay.
that's their terms.
Okay,
Yeah. In 25 years, then we'll consider to re-up it or whatever is considered there.
okay. So 25 years from now, they'll want to make that a little bit more, probably.
Could be. Maybe they'll forget about it, but
Right.
maybe not.
Yeah, great. Maybe we won't use trains 25 years from now.
Any other questions?
If there aren't any more, I'll make a motion to pass resolution F-189.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second to pass resolution F-189. Any final comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
And we have one abstention, Mr. Bartel.
Abstain. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Resolution F-189 passes. Moving on to ordinances. We have a couple of them. This one, ordinance Y-49, the modification of the critical area ordinance to add steep slopes. Todd, you're only asking for first reading on this one?
Yes, I am. Can I go ahead and hit the share screen and then open it up? Get you a short presentation about why we're here and where we're going with it. So our critical areas, mostly our critical areas is just going to address wetlands, maybe a creek bed, that type of stuff, but it's been coming more to the attention of these steep slopes as considering a critical areas key element in it. So roughly 30 years or over 30 years, Washington State has been governed by the Growth Management Act, and enacted in 1990 requires local government to manage growth part identifying, protecting critical areas. I think it really came to head when the Oso landslide, if you recall, in 2014, we started taking a look at or other jurisdictions about landslides, hazards, steep slopes, erosion, and started to modify their critical areas ordinance. And that's why we're here somewhat tonight. We've had a few developments that do have steep slopes on it, so we wanted to put this on the agenda. It went to Planning Commission, and they recommended at least to move the ordinance forward. Again, primarily wetlands, stream buffers is what we monitor under the critical areas. We recently had a few land use applications, that one being Golden Hills and the one being Ridgeview up in there, which had some steep slopes to it. And so this revision would allow erosion and steep slopes to be considered in the critical areas to where we would have geotech reports based on these steep slopes. These are the other jurisdictions around the area that have either updated or have in place added to their critical areas ordinance of steep slopes. We did have this ordinance reviewed by a geotech engineer and also with our legal. So we want to include erosion and hazard in this as well as landslide hazards, which means anything that is soil or is sparse and native that has a potential to erode and cause a landslide or has a potential to erode into other neighboring properties. We want to have somewhat that control to see that during the development. landslide hazards greater than 30%. Obviously, we want to make sure that we shelf anything that we do on there, that we shelf that for proper protection to avoid any slides. A little slow. Anyway, I get my point around. You can, this is the city of Cheney, but these areas right here, those are indication of really where the steep slopes lie, kind of in our downtown area that has already been built with streets. But as you kind of take a look, these areas are still remain steep slopes. So if we take a look, we can identify through what they call a LiDAR map and a few other sources, we can actually identify these steep slopes as development occurs, whether they are a development itself. This would be the Golden Hills area. They actually did a lot of grading work to bring this, and they shelved that with geotech to bring up the slopes. And then these individual lots. So we're talking development and or individual lot. If they want to build on a steep slope or back into a steep slope, this is where we would have to be sure that they get a geotech report for that. So we're going to include, it is included, the erosion and the landslide, and we're going to use GIS as a tool, like I said on that previous slide, a LiDAR, and we're going to identify slopes within the city greater than 30%. We feel that we can use that through maybe an EW student and kind of map that out using basically the secondary data sources as we see to identify those slopes. So if the site's identified in the GIS having greater, the applicant will have to submit a geotech report to that end, and the geotech will provide a foundation and slopes stability requirements. Once completed, then a building permit can move forward. I believe that's it. I'll answer any questions you may have.
Thanks, Todd.
And just first reading.
Any questions for Todd on including steep slopes in critical areas?
So, when folks are developing and they move a bunch of dirt around and it's a steep, so that's under the category of like erosion control.
Yeah, when they, so if they're gonna move dirt and do grading, we do have a grading permit that they would attain. And we feel if there's a certain amount or there's a steep slope, then we ask for a geotechnical report. We didn't have this critical areas in line when Golden Hills was there, but they were moving a lot of dirt, which required a grading permit, which then we required a geotech report as they were moving that amount of dirt. As far as Ridgeview, during that process, we put conditions in the plat itself to cover our steep slopes, but now we're coming back. But to answer your question, yeah, that would be, even if it's on the map, I can tell you that somebody could go in their backyard and create a steep slope. So I think you just can't trust the map. You also have to almost go to site to make sure that there could be a potential of somebody just moving and creating steep slope.
Yeah, I was also worried about the time it takes for disrupted soil to resettle. And so that's covered in, I'm thinking the erosion part, or
it is. Okay. Yeah. If you take a look, we had an incident about, oh gosh, I'm probably dating myself here. About 6-7 years ago, one of these lots was undeveloped during a rainstorm, and it really wasn't taken care of at all. It didn't have any soil in it, and it actually part of it just kind of went through the neighbor's back fence and into his yard. So those type of things can happen, and that is identified still as kind of a steep slope, and that's what we'd have to try to correct.
Right.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I had a question, Todd. So, if we're gonna utilize, Eastern and their department, maybe a student to, map this, is there any fear that a developer or, whoever's owning that property who's now being asked to spend the money on geotech and stuff could question, hey, you guys just kind of did this and used a student, it's not accurate?
Well, I think what we would be looking at is students just under the guidelines is going to pull sources from the secondary data source. They're not going to create there. It's already a source out there and lie that over that light art. With anything else, if there's somebody that wants to build, we're probably going to get a set of eyes on it. And we know that, hey, my areas looks as a steep slope. You go out and maybe it wasn't, or it wasn't at that, then we can have that correction. Yeah, we just want to protect wherever you have a steep slope, if you're going to be getting into that potential.
Mark?
Thanks, Todd. My question is your last slide. Can we go to that one? Just the process of that. So if somebody has a slope that's steeper than 30% or greater than 30%, they need to do a geotech on it. But then once the geotech is completed, a building permit may be applied for. That doesn't guarantee that they're going to be allowed to build there. And I guess it's not necessarily saying that they need to fix the slope. So what's the process for if it's greater than 30% and they just get to apply for the permit? We're not really saying you need to fix the slope, are we?
Yeah,
How's that working?
we will have a geotech report for a fix. So if it's addressing steep slopes, maybe they have to cut in that bank. They have to stabilize the slope. The slope could actually be still fairly steep, right? But what they're gonna every 10 feet, they're gonna take a bank to allow that erosion and compact it and kind of stair step it up. Once that's done and the geotech has officially had that, kind of take a look at it, then yeah. To answer your question, if they do apply for a building permit and they say, well, we don't have to fix it, we're just going to do it. If we don't have that report, then we have a certificate of occupancy issue.
Okay.
Yeah, so the
Great.
report has recommendations and requirements to correct prior to development.
And we're talking two things, development, if it's in development itself, from a developer creating several lots, yeah, we have to have that as part of that development. But if the developer chooses not to touch any of those lots that have steep slopes, then it's going to have to go back to that individual lot owner to decide whether he wants to build back in that steep slope area or not.
Okay. So geotech's going to recommend a 3 stair step wall there or something to that effect. Okay.
Your Honor, if there are no more questions,
I don't see any more.
I would move for the first reading of ordinance Y 49 and title and summary form only. And plate, yeah. And then subsequent readings be brought to us at subsequent meetings. Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and second for the first reading of ordinance Y 49 in title and summary form only, and that subsequent readings be brought forward in future council meetings. Any final questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Carrie, go ahead.
Ordinance Y 49, an ordinance amending title 21.70 critical areas of the Cheney Municipal Code and providing for other matters related thereto.
Thank you, Carrie. Now this is going to be available for the public to comment if they wish and bring this back at our next council meeting. So thank you very much, Todd. Okay, ordinance Y 50 establishing capital project fund for pool construction and looking for all three today. Okay, Cindy, go ahead.
Part 2 of my pool construction presentation. So what we're doing is establishing a separate fund that we will receive the bond money into and pay all of the costs associated with the pool out of. Establishing a separate capital project fund, I think, is important for transparency. I think it will show all the money that comes in and it shows exactly where the money goes. If we receive any grant money, if we receive any other funding for the pool, that will come into this fund as well. Then after the pool is all built, buttoned up and over, this fund will be closed. So I'm asking for all three readings of ordinance Y 50, please.
Thank you, Cindy. Questions for Cindy on this? This is a good move.
If there are no questions, I would move for the first reading of ordinance Y 50. And the first be considered the second and the second be considered the third. And that it be placed before us for final passage after the reading and title and summary form only.
Okay, thank you. And second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion and a second for the first reading of ordinance Y 50, establishing a capital project fund for pool construction. And that the first be considered the second and third and final reading in title and summary form only, and that it be placed before you all for final passage. Any final comments or questions?
I would only say that, and I never say this, Paul and others are better at reminding, but of course, we reviewed this in the finance committee meeting.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Teresa. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
You're opposed? Okay, got them all. Carry.
Ordinance Y 50, an ordinance establishing a fund in the Office of Finance to be designated as Pool Construction Fund and providing for the effective date hereof.
Thank you. Councilmember Overhauser.
Aye.
Councilmember Schmidt.
Aye.
Councilmember Bartels.
Aye.
Councilmember Wiseman.
Aye.
Councilmember Guard.
Aye.
Councilmember Hilton.
Aye.
And Councilmember Poster.
Aye.
Wonderful. Ordinance Y 50 passes. Thank you, Cindy. And going on to ordinance Y 52, this is our second budget amendment for 2023. Go ahead.
It is. Thank you, Your Honor. The main reason I brought this forward, and I'll discuss this at the end, is for some funding for this capital project fund that we just initiated so that they can actually spend some money out of it. But there's a couple other things going on that I want to bring to your attention. We have our therapeutic court grant, and that applies, that pays for some of the salaries in the court. So this is acknowledging that grant and then funding that through an expense for their salaries. The fire department went out and got an EMS injury prevention grant. They'd like to spend it. So we are bringing that grant in and then adding that to their budget so they may spend that grant for the appropriate items. I have an IT Councilmember Postuma budget on here. So given that we have a new IT company, we've had some expenses there. I had some money in ending fund balance, or as you remember, we refer to that as our cash carryover to our next year. I'm using some of that to pay for some of these expenses with our new IT company. And then of course, the 301 fund is our capital projects fund. So in budgeting, we typically budget all that money that we have in case something comes up throughout the year that the council decides we need to spend that money on. So rather than just move that down to a transfer and pop it out, I really felt it was important, again, for transparency, to show what that money's doing. So I am taking $1 million from that fund and I'm moving that into the newly created capital projects fund for the pool. That will go through, that pool construction is done, and I'll move that $1 million back into the fund where it was. I'm just kind of pre-funding some of those expenses that we are currently having. So with that, the total of that then is $1,029,600. Again, $1 million of that is from that new fund. And I'm asking for all three readings of ordinance Y 52, please.
Thank you, Cindy. Any questions for Cindy on this?
If there are no questions, Your Honor, I would move for the first reading of
52.
ordinance Y 52 in title and summary form only, and that the first be considered the second and the second be considered the third, and it be placed before us for final passage.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second for the first reading of ordinance Y 52 in title and summary form only, and that the first be considered the second and the second be considered the third, and that it be placed before you for final passage. Any final questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Carry.
Ordinance Y 52, an ordinance amending section 2 of ordinance Y 47, amending the budget for the city of Cheney, Washington for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2023, and providing for the effective date hereof.
Thank you, Carrie. Councilmember Overhauser.
Aye.
Councilmember Schmidt.
Aye.
Councilmember Bartels.
Aye.
Councilmember Wiseman.
Aye.
Councilmember Guard.
Aye.
Councilmember Hilton
Aye.
and Councilmember Poster.
Aye.
Thank you, Cindy. Ordinance Y 52 passes. Appreciate that. And that concludes our action items. We don't have any other business, but I'm sure Mark has a couple staff reports.
One, just to continue on the theme of the pool, things are moving very quickly. We have an asbestos survey that will be completed this week, right, Todd? So we'll know if there's any abatement that's gonna be required in the pool house and in the facility. Tomorrow, we will actually be interviewing the firms that submitted for our RFP to complete the design of the pool. So that's exciting as well. We hope to bring a contract for council for consideration once we make a selection. And I will thank those that are on the committee for participating in the interviews tomorrow. And then let's move on to football and school. It's exciting to have students back in town. Great startup for Eastern. We've got a big football game here this weekend. Go Eagles. I won't say anything about our finance director, who's an alum of the opposing school. But that's okay. That's a different story for a different day. Go Eagles. It's just an exciting time to have all the students back, and there's just an energy and an excitement in town. So get out and support your Eagles on Saturday. Thanks.
Go Eagles. So Councilmember Bartels has voiced interest in being on the Spokane County Solid Waste Advisory Committee. So I'd like to appoint him with council confirmation.
So move.
Be okay. Okay. Motion and a second to confirm appointment of Councilmember Bartels on the Spokane County Solid Waste Advisory Committee. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
And echo what Mark said. I like the vibrancy when the students are in town. It just kind of picks up. It feels good to have those students around. Go Eagles. Teresa.
I was just gonna say, all the kids are walking by my house and I see the same ones that every time in the day, and they've got all their backpacks and their gear, and see them coming home, walking a little slower. Nothing other than that. The left board has been meeting, and then I've got the I'm sorry, I have a headache tonight. I'm not thinking very clearly. The county planning
Yes. GMA.
group that I meet with, so been busy enough.
Yes. Lots. Okay, thanks. Paul.
Thank you, Honor. I have no comment tonight.
Okay, Vince.
I guess thank you for nominating me for the board. I'll participate tomorrow in the pool selection committee, and I think I'll see Teresa and others. And lastly, go Eagles. Thanks.
Thanks, Vince. What do you got there for us? Come on.
Just very short. With the students back, I've made a comment to a couple different people. Some of the students are forgetting that stop signs actually mean stop. And so we've seen a lot of cars coming through stop signs that should not be coming through stop signs, and they're not stopping. So hopefully they will get reminded that we actually have laws in the city that need to be followed. But other than that, it's great to have them back, because you can just feel the energy. So
Not just the students.
Yeah,
It's
I
not
agree.
just the students.
that's true.
Be patient with those
Put him on the
youngins.
spot here, but Chief Beckle, do you want to come out and talk about the emphasis patrols that you've done?
Sure. Thank you, Your Honor, City Council members. Yeah, we started emphasis patrol back in July, actually, July 25th, addressing specific areas within the city, Washington, North Sixth, the area of Fifth and Ash, and so forth. And we've made several hundred traffic stops and issued quite a few citations. So hopefully, and as we have progressed through that emphasis patrol, the number of stops have declined dramatically. And once again, our goal is not to issue citations as much as it is to change behavior. So I think that we're getting the message across and we're being successful, but we're going to have every now and then we're going to have a person blow through a stop sign. But we're going to be out there doing the emphasis throughout the year. So thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Ryan.
Just kind of echo what's already been said. It's really nice to see the students. The campus looks beautiful right now, so it's just this big package deal. But yeah, the game this weekend, they said earlier today that it's already over 90% sold out. So if you are thinking of going and you haven't got a ticket yet, you might want to do that before too long. So that's it.
Yeah.
As somebody who's been here a long time, it is an annual tradition that these students go through the stop signs that first week, I think. So it's nothing new, I'll tell you that. No, I have nothing, just go Eagles.
Mark?
Yeah, it is great to have college students back. It's fun. I love it. What makes our town unique and great and special. So That's good. Welcome back, college students, and go East.
All right. Any final thoughts?
Would move for.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
What are we calling it
Motion
now?
and a second to conclude this meeting.
Conclude.
Conclude the meeting.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Feel better, Vince.